guys, Ray from Whimsical Pictures here, staying super on brand by bringing you a wrap up for a Halloween readathon in January. Yay! Starting the year off right. Alright, so to be honest, for the last year or so, and especially in the last few months, I have been so burnt out from work and everything. And just anytime I have off, I'm just crashing. And it's gotten to the point where it's I feel guilty almost anytime I do something that's not work, something that's just for me. And obviously that's not a healthy way to be. Um, and a lot of what I've been doing the last year is not a healthy way to be. So, one of my big goals for the new year is honestly just to give myself permission to do things that are just for me, that are just fun, and I just want to do because I want to do them. And for me, that's going to be, a lot of reading, a lot of D&D, and yeah, YouTube too. I honestly really enjoy making videos, talking about manga, coming up with video ideas, interacting with the community. I've met so many cool people through this platform, made some really cool friends. I'm having a blast doing the podcast that I'm doing with G over at Simply G. Um, and I want my life to have more of that in it, more of those vibes, those good vibes. So, yeah, here's to giving yourself permission to do things and have hobbies that are just for you and nobody else. And in that vein, I have had the books set aside that I read from this readathon set aside for 3 months now? And I still feel like talking about them. So we're going to do a wrap up for a readathon I participated in the latter half of October called the Manga Freakathon. I read a lot of books, both spooky and non, for this readathon. I think I did very well at this readathon, considering, how the year has gone. So, yeah, lots of books to talk about. So, without further ado, the first one that I read, I do remember, the order of this is going to be, not probably entirely accurate. It's, to the best of my memory, because it's been 3 months. But I do remember I started with this one because I was already, a third of the way into it before the readathon started, so I wanted to sort of start myself off easy, get into the mood of reading by finishing this, and that was Volume 3 of Witch Hat Atelier by Kamome Shirahama. This series is awesome and excellent, and I talk about the series as a whole in detail in the most recent episode of the podcast I'm doing with G over on her channel, which was our top 5 2019 manga releases. This series was one of mine, and so I talked about it quite a bit. So if you're interested in hearing our top releases and our thoughts on them, I will link that podcast episode down below. So check it out if you haven't already. This series is a fantasy series about a little girl named Coco who's studying to become a witch under this guy, Kifri. And it is so wholesome and wonderful. I would super, in a heartbeat, I would give this to, an elementary schooler to read. There's no objectionable content here. It's got some good messages, a cast of 4 really nice female role models for young readers, and of course, it is gorgeous and stunning and wonderful. The art is so good. This volume in particular made me cry. In particular because of the story of this little boy here, who was born with a certain physical difference that essentially makes it's very difficult for him to perform magic in the way that magic is typically performed in this society. So this volume has a really interesting exploration of issues of accessibility and different ways of perceiving the world and art. And just the resolution to his story was so heartwarming and wonderful and made me just like bawl. I cried so much. It was so good. Um, Read Witch Hat Atelier. Um, it's so good. Next, we have another English volume. This is volume 2 of Go with the Clouds, North by Northwest by Aki Irie. This is the creator of Ron and the Grey World, which is a series that I have some issues with. So I'm happy to have a series in English by him that I don't have super issues with. So yeah, this is a story of this guy here who is half Japanese and half Icelandic. He lives in Iceland and goes around in his car doing odd jobs for different people. There's a slight magical realist element here where he has a supernatural affinity with machines, and in particular, he is able to talk to his car. It's like I often find myself forgetting that that's a part of it, and then he'll just talk to his car, and I'll just be like, oh yeah, he can talk to his car. His grandfather or whatever that he's staying with also seems to have an ability to communicate with either birds or the wind. It's not entirely clear yet, but so this sort of magical ability seems to be something that is common in his family. This series also has a murder mystery element where his little brother, who has been raised in Japan, essentially, suddenly runs away to Iceland, leaving the bodies of their parents in his wake. And it's not known if he's the murderer or if he's running away from the murderers, but for sure that is going to come to a head at some point or another. But not in this volume, because this volume takes a sudden and wild turn into Iceland travelogue territory. In this volume, the main character's Japanese friend here we go. He comes from Japan to see his buddy and see the wonders of Iceland, and that's what they do. They eat delicious food and hang out in the capital city and see all of the sights. Here we've got the Northern Lights. That's pretty. There's so many beautiful vistas. Just look at the vistas. So, yeah. Some people were like mad at this sudden shift, but I was not. I was happy. I loved this just as much as I loved the murder mystery stuff in the first volume. It felt like I was taking a trek around Iceland with some close friends. And it just felt like I was having a super rad trip, like with friends in a new place that I've certainly never been before. It made me want to go to Iceland, something fierce. Definitely, I think the goal here was to portray the beauty of Iceland, and it definitely succeeded in that because I really want to go to Iceland now. Um, this was great. I really enjoyed this. I heard the third volume gets back into the mystery stuff, so I'm looking forward to that as well. Love this series. Third read was in Japanese. This is the second volume of Kanojo ni Naritai Kimi to Boku. This is an LGBTQ series about these two girls. The series starts with them entering high school, and it starts with her basically taking one of the first big steps in her transition by getting permission to wear the girls' uniform to high school instead of the boys' uniform. And her childhood best friend here, so that she doesn't feel alone and doesn't feel like a laughingstock, decides that she will wear the boys' uniform in solidarity. So that's the premise. I picked up the first volume kind of like interested, but wary, because I sometimes these manga can be very like after school special, which, you know, might be helpful for like straight and cis, I'm cis, but readers who are not that familiar with LGBTQ issues to like learn about them. But it's not personally what I'm looking for in LGBTQ manga, if that makes sense. Um, so I was like, I don't know if this is going to be exactly what I'm looking for, but I was wrong. I loved volume one of this so much. So these two, obviously are childhood friends, but they immediately form a friend group with these two girls. She's like a cool, like strong and silent, almost like Yankee type. And she is like lovably annoying, like talks like she's extremely online, loves cute things. She's my favorite, by the way. Like my soul sister. I love her. But this is so positive. The friend group in this is one of my absolute favorite like manga friend groups now. Like I love them so much. They're so loving and supportive and like just adorable. Like the way their personalities play off of each other is so cute and so like realistic. I don't know. I just love all of these characters so much and I want good things for them. Of course, you know, much like say Our Dreams at Dusk or something, it turns out that this character is not the only LGBTQ character in our friend group. And it deals with a variety of like different identities and really like it deals, I think, similarly to Our Dreams at Dusk, it deals a lot with the space in between where like, you know, Akira-chan here is like in a place where, you know, people almost expect her to be further along in her transition than she is, but she doesn't even like because of her situation with her family and her parents, she anything more than wearing the sailor uniform is like even just growing out her hair is like so not even on the table that she hasn't even begun to define for herself what transition even looks like to her. Um, you know, she doesn't know necessarily what she even wants. Like what is transition to her? She doesn't know. Um, and for her it's like she's in love with Akira-chan. Um, and not sure what that means for her own sexuality and finding that, you know, although she started wearing the male uniform, the gakuran, for Akira-chan's sake, you know, was that really why she did it? Is that why she's doing it now? Like, what does it mean to her? She's not sure. So she's questioning her gender and her sexuality. Um, and then, you know, this girl is a lesbian who has had uh, sort of certain experiences with uh, a female classmate that she had a crush on in the past. Um, so it's just like, and there's another character who's introduced who is implied to be some kind of gender fluid. We don't know much about him yet, but he's very comfortable dressing in feminine clothing, appearing as a woman, but he does not identify as trans. So we're definitely going to get more details about him in the next volume. But the series is very much like, you know, it's okay not to know. Like, it's okay to be where you're at and to not be sure and to, like, explore different things and figure yourself out. And that doesn't make you any less queer. It doesn't make you any less who you are. Um, it doesn't make you any less whatever gender that you are. Um, it's all valid and it's all okay. So I really appreciate that sort of message. And it's just such a fun, cute, lovable read. So yeah, volume 2 was great too. I hope that gets licensed in English. That would be nice. Next was my first like spooky read, which was volume 2 of Sensei to Watashi by Yosuke Takahashi. Um, it's interesting that his name is Takahashi because someone pointed out on Twitter as well, and I also kind of thought so when I was reading it, but uh, this mangaka's art style looks a lot like Rumiko Takahashi, this girl in the back as well. I really love the art style in this. That was why I picked it up, because I liked the covers. This is a 2-volume series of horror vignettes about this sort of boy who is very susceptible to being possessed by yokai. He's always been possessed by yokai with one horn and a yokai with one eye that gives him his unique appearance. Although people with no affinity for seeing yokai think that he looks like a normal boy. Um, so, in order to keep him safe from all the yokai trying to possess his body, he gets taken in by this sort of yokai hunter, I guess. And each chapter is them dealing with a different yokai. There's a heavy focus on body horror here, as this boy is, when he gets possessed by yokai, he gets sort of morphed by them. I really enjoyed the first volume, although there were some issues with, like, sexism, because I think these comics are pulled from, like, an older release. I don't think they're new. Don't quote me on that, though. I know this mangaka has been in the biz for decades, but obviously that's no excuse. It's very, like, obvious sexism, too. It's, like, your grandpa sexism. So it's like, ugh. uh, really? 2019? Alright. Um, so, but the first volume, I found enough of the stories, like, entertaining in terms of the horror and playing around with, like, the art style, that I was excited to read volume 2, but unfortunately, the stories just aren't as strong in this one. There's a lot more of that weird sexism, and it's just, I just didn't like it very much, unfortunately. The ideas just aren't there. The ideas and the art to go along with the ideas, it just isn't as creative. Like, I feel like it's all stuff that I've seen before. Whereas in the first volume, I felt like there were some new ideas there. So that's a shame. It does mean that both of these volumes are going to be leaving my collection, which is a shame because the covers are really pretty, but, a nice cover does not justify the shelf space on its own. Next, we have volume 6 of Land of the Lustrous by Haruko Ichikawa. One of my favorite ongoing series. This was the last one I had at the time. I have since caught up buying volumes 7 through 9, but I have not read those yet. Because of aforementioned burnout. This has such a cliffhanger ending. So I am definitely looking forward to reading more. I just have not really been able to. This series is incredible, speculative sci-fi, surrealist weirdness. The art and the layouts in particular are unmatched. Absolutely stunning. Absolutely stunning. Um, and there's just so many interesting ideas here, not just in terms of the sci-fi, but just thematically. This series deals a lot with bodies and gender and transformation and change and how much can you change before you become a different person? Um, how much of your identity is your body? You know, um, how connected are your body and mind, I guess. It's so interesting. And it has made me think about bodies and bodily difference and bodily change in ways that I haven't thought about it before. And that's my mark of a great work of art is did it make me think things that I've never thought before? And this definitely does. So if you're not reading Land of the Lustrous, you should get on it, especially if you like weird things, because it's really weird. Next, we have a pretty fitting Halloween read. This is volume 2 of Vampire Dormitory by Emma Toyama. It's actually my first Emma Toyama series. So I feel like she's been a shoujo staple for a long time. But I don't read a whole lot of like generic shoujo romance right now. I did in high school. I read so much of it in high school. But this one I picked up because of a particular panel that Shay from Shay Geeks Out was like sharing on Twitter or something, where the vampire main character is like gushing about his favorite magical girl series because that's his thing. He's like an otaku who loves this particular magical girl series. And I was like, that looks like fun, and also it has vampires in it, so that's a go. And I got the digital volume and I read it, and it was fun. Um, there's nothing deep about this. It is really shallow, like almost impressively so. But that's exactly what I wanted from a series called Vampire Dormitory. So I picked up volume 2 in print. I have since picked up volume 3, but I haven't read it yet. This series proved once and for all that this is indeed Vampire Knight Light. And we have a Zero to go with our Kaname now. And I'm very happy because he seems almost identical to Zero. And Zero is the one thing I liked about Vampire Knight. I still hold a bit of a candle for that boy. And so definitely liking the third wheel character here. But the difference is that I hated Kaname with the fiery, burning passion of 1,000 suns, and I don't hate this guy. He's fine. So we've got 2 love interests who are fine, and that's great. That's all I can ask for, really. The gender bending aspect in this is really clumsily handled and super gender essentialist, but whatever. Whatever. Next, we have volume 4 of this horror series, Yureito. Yureito, or The Phantom Tower, is the title of a famous novel by Ranpo Edogawa, who is a Japanese mystery and horror writer from the early 20th century. And this is a pun, like a play on that title. So it's about these 2 boys here who are trying to get to the treasure hidden in a creepy tower known as the Phantom Tower, where a horrifying murder took place a few years before the start of the series. So, this volume in particular, though, was bad. I did not like this volume. It took me forever to get through. Every volume takes forever because the Japanese is quite difficult. But also, like, this one took particularly forever because I was annoyed. um, and it was slow. It was, like, badly paced. This volume was disappointing because I really enjoyed the first three. Like, this series is trashy, and like I don't expect everything to make sense because it's like that kind of grotesque horror mystery carnival of the grotesque kind of vibes. Um, so a lot of it is very ridiculous and over the top. Um, but this was it just wasn't fun. I don't know. This was like a side story where these two end up in a secluded mountain town where the town is basically illegally farming opium poppies and selling them on the black market in order to make its money. Um, and in order to keep the secret from getting out, they are strictly uh, controlling their population. And just like the way that plays out is really dumb. It's dumb and annoying, and I didn't like it. So that's a shame. The next volume I think goes into Tetsuo's backstory, which is gonna be really interesting because Tetsuo is the best character, and my husband. Uh, I love him a lot. So, and he definitely like he's got some secrets to tell. So I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, so I am looking forward to the next volume. Again, because the Japanese is quite difficult. It's been on hold due to burnout and also the JLPT. So I am looking forward to getting back into it in the new year and finishing up the series. Next, we have Jitsuroku Hoikushi Deko Sensei by Dekopon Taro. Dekopon Goro. Oh my god. Frick. um, I'll let you know my JLPT results. Yeah, so that translates to the true story of daycare worker Deko Sensei. We can see him with some adorable kids. Adorable. uh, so the author of this, Deko Pongoro, is actually a woman. This is just the avatar that she draws for herself. So it is her true experiences, but through the lens of this sort of silly, big buff dude. Um, there. Okay, sorry. I loved this volume so much. You can see it's in full color. That's a good face. That is a fantastic face. I love that. This portrays toddlers as they truly are. Uh, equal turns, adorable, bizarre, disgusting, and horrifying. So, I love that it gets across like the horrible parts of toddlers as well as how wonderful they can be. Um, at the same time, like this is the most realistic portrayal of toddlers that I've seen in manga. This chick definitely has been through it. Like she knows what she's talking about. It's just extremely funny. So funny. I laughed out loud so much. And I love the little heartwarming moments where like Deko Sensei is just like, you know, having a heartfelt conversation with a parent or, you know, there's this one where like he's like if things aren't working out, look inside yourself and ask yourself, what was it that you wanted to hear from your parents when you were that age? Because that might be the words that your child is hoping to hear from you. And there's another one that's like, you know, um, maybe you should watch what you're saying in front of them because you might think they don't understand, but they do. And they're always listening. So, like, there's a couple moments in there that, like, obviously working with toddlers, like preschoolers, is a whole different universe from working with elementary schoolers, which is what I do. But like just in terms of like teacher feelings, I definitely got some of those reading this. So this was so good. It's just gonna be the one volume, but if she writes more, I will buy it in a heartbeat because I loved this. 3 more books. This one is volume 5 of Koretto wa shi no koto ni shita. Colette Decides to Die by Yukimura Alto. This is like chill vibes, like fantasy romance series between this girl, Colette, who is an herbalist, and the Lord of the Underworld, Hades. Basically, she is an herbalist on the surface who is overworked, and one day when she's gazing dreamily into the well, she accidentally leans a little too far and falls down, ending up in the underworld. And she immediately gets shipped off by these little talking skeleton dudes into the palace of the Lord of the Underworld. Because he requires the care of a doctor. He is sick with a mysterious ailment, and the skeletons don't know what to do. So she ends up taking him on as an in-house patient, and basically spending her days on the surface, dealing with normal herbalist work, and then coming down to the underworld in the afternoon to care for her in-house patient. And of course, he gets better after a while, and she continues to come down to check on him because he is prone to getting sick, because he works a lot. And he's also very allergic to the sun. So that ends up being a space where she can kind of like let loose. She's very overworked on the surface. So after that, you know, being able to come down to the underworld and just kind of be herself and hang out with Hades is like, you know, becomes something that's precious to her. And of course, you know, it's the same for him as well. After a day of like judging souls to be good or evil, you know, he looks forward to being able to just sort of chill with her. And of course, you know, something a little more develops out of that relationship. And we are firmly, as of Volume 5, in the mutual crush territory. Both of them have acknowledged to themselves that they are in love with the other. I know from looking at the most recent volumes that they are going out eventually, but I don't know when that happens. So this volume introduces Dionysus. So sometimes we get like a new Olympian figure introduced just whenever Yukimura Alto feels like it. So we've got like Apollo and Demeter. But yeah, more or less, Hades is like so my type. It's actually embarrassing. Colette is very similar to Shirayuki from Snow White with the Red Hair in personality. Obviously, they're both herbalists. But I find this series more interesting than Snow White with the Red Hair because it has a bit more meat, I think, to the like vignettes. So it'll be split into stories where Colette is dealing with a specific like patient on the surface, or, you know, we'll meet a new Olympian, or, you know, there'll be something happening in the underworld. So, like, there's always some sort of momentum happening that I just didn't feel personally with Snow White with the Red Hair. So, same genre, but this is my personal preference. Hades is also more my type than Zen, so. 2 more books. We've got, I think I read this one first, actually. Volume 6 of Blue Flag. This series continues to be just excellent and heartbreaking and just like life-ruining. I love it so much. Pick it up in English when it comes out. This is a high school drama that is just handled so well. it's just so good. Like, I can't explain to you, like, how good it is. The writing is so good. I suppose it gets a little cheesy every once in a while, but it feels so real to me, these characters. Just how messy they are and how well-meaning they are. I just love it. It's so good. We're getting into college vibes now. And, the end of this volume has a major sort of thing happen that I am very concerned about. So I do have volume 7 now, and I am going to read it soon. The last one that I read was very sweet and wholesome and wonderful, and it just got an English license. I'm so happy. This is Hayama Sensei to Terano Sensei wa tsukiatteiru. Hayama Sensei and Terano Sensei are going out. I believe it's been translated as the gym teacher and the school nurse are dating, I think. And this series is just, it's two adult women in love. We've got a beautiful butch and an adorable femme, which, you know, so much Yuri manga is just femme, so it's nice to have like a good solid butch. And it's just like so wholesome. It's super escapist. Like, everyone's super supportive. The principal knows and is supportive. Coworkers know and are supportive. Students know and they're hella supportive. It's just nice. It's nice to read. Like, and like, I guess I'll show this because it doesn't have any like outward facing boobies. But like, these are, you know, sexual adult women, like, in an adult relationship. We see them go on their first date. We see them, you know, skipping off to secret areas of the school to like smooch. We see their first time together, and it's just like, they just love each other so much, and they're so good and wonderful and cute and good. And please pick up the series when it comes out in English. I love series about teachers too, because that's what I'm doing right now, and that's what I'm planning on doing for the rest of my life. So I guess that's a shallow reason, but that's why. So yeah, that is everything I read. It's actually quite a nice sizable stack there, and I think a decent number of them are Japanese as well, so I'm proud of myself for that. That was the last readathon I like successfully completed in the year, but yeah. So first, like, book video of the new year. I think my coloring book one is going up before this one, but like, True Blue talking about manga video, first one. Looking forward to more great things to come in 2020. Happy New Year, and see you guys next time. Bye.